I'd like to welcome you to the Fiberglass Spider 635 Quadcopter builds. This short video will demonstrate the basic steps required to complete the quadcopter to the point at which you see here on my workbench in this video. The Fiberglass Spider 635 Quadcopter is also known as the Good Luck Buy Quadcopter. Before we begin, let's first take an inventory of the parts. Please note, upon completion of the assembly of the quadcopter, you'll be left with 4 1-inch hex head bolts and 4 lock nuts. Before we begin assembly by attaching the upper and lower motor mounts to their respective aluminum arms, this step requires us to deburr the inside of the aluminum arms where they were pre-drilled out in the factory to receive the upper and lower motor mounts. It's necessary to smooth out the insides of these aluminum arms and deburr them so that we can later slide the posts in to receive the motor mounts. These posts, which slide inside the aluminum arms and reinforce the upper and lower motor mounts, will require some sanding before they'll fit into the aluminum arms and slide snugly into position. As you can see here, this one's directly from the manufacturer, unsanded. It does not yet fit into the aluminum arm and slide into position. I'll take a few minutes to sand it down, checking it periodically, and then finally negotiating it in the position here inside the aluminum arm and readying it for the attachment of the upper and lower motor mounts. This step demonstrates the technique I use to align the motor mount posts with the pre-drilled bolt holes in the aluminum frame. After pushing the posts in, I accurately align them with this pick tool. Another way of doing this might be with a small screwdriver or even a toothpick. Next, I will loosely fasten the bolts into position, ensuring the posts remain aligned with the pre-drilled holes. This method of loosely fastening the bolts into position with the post inside the aluminum frame will keep everything lined up and make it easier when we get to the next step of attaching and securing the upper and lower motor mounts, which you can see in the bottom left corner of the video. Here I'm showing you the post inside and the bolts that mount the assembly together. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts and 2 posts inside and ready to go. Now we'll move on to securing the upper and lower motor mounts. In this next step, we'll begin by backing out 2 bolts as demonstrated here. It doesn't matter which side really, as long as you pick one and they're removed from the same side. Next, in this case, I take the top motor mount, align it with my pick tool to the pre-drilled holes, and then I replace the bolts and I secure them back into position with an Allen wrench. Now I've skipped ahead to where I'm finishing up the bottom mount, and I'm moving around to all 4 points, ensuring that everything is tightly secured into position. So, just to review, once we've established our upper and lower mounts, we should have the 4 bolt locations, the 1, 2 posts inside of the aluminum arm, and then the upper and lower motor mounts all secured together at the end of each one of the 4 aluminum arms. This completes the motor mount system and makes everything secure. In this next step, I'll demonstrate how to mount the upper fiberglass mounting system or upper body to the lower fiberglass mounting system or lower body. First, I will take the upper body and 4 of the threaded posts, and I'll position them through the pre-drilled holes in the front of the upper body as seen here. Do this step now. Once you get the system together, it would be much more difficult to line those posts up with the pre-drilled holes. Here I'm showing the difference before we begin between the forward arm and the rear arm. Forward arm being the much longer arm, rear arm being the shorter arm. I'll take the forward arm and I'll mount it to the front of the upper body. In this case, the front left position. I'll hold it with my thumb, and then I'll begin to work the bolts through the holes of the upper body and the pre-drilled holes of the aluminum arm. It'll take a little bit of wiggling here to get the bolt all the way through. Once that first bolt's through, the process is much easier. After working both of the bolts through, I'll line up the lower body now and press it through, check everything is still in alignment. Now I can take the threaded lock nuts and I can spin them onto those two bolts with my fingers, just finger tight for now. And then I will take my Allen wrench and I'll tighten those down before beginning the process for the other arms. The next step, I will take the 4 bolts you see on the bottom right of the screen and go back to the 4 posts that are in the forward portion of the copter, and through the bottom body section of the copter there are pre-drilled holes. Those bolts will slide right in there and tighten down. Next, I'm going to make one final check, fastening all of the bolts, connecting the bodies and the arms together, making sure everything is in their final secure position. And everything seems tight and secure. At this point, the basic frame of the quadcopter is finished. Next, we'll begin the assembly and mounting of the gear system to the bottom body portion of the quadcopter. The gear system comes with 4 pre-drilled holes, although note that the holes are smaller in diameter than the factory included 1-inch bolts, the black hex head bolts that you'll use to mount the body to the struts of the gear system. So this requires some pre-drilling, demonstrated here. I pre-drill all 4 holes and then I actually run the bolts through the holes as seen here before mounting it, just to do a check to make sure everything works and fits properly before I make the alignment with the body system of the copter and position it to mount it in the final position. So as I've said, I've removed the bolts. I know that the bolts will run through the struts now. So I locate the factory pre-drilled holes on the bottom and top body sections of the quadcopter, running the bolts through those holes, now at the other end of the lower body, as you see here. Next, I'll make alignment with those holes, running them through the struts of the quadcopter, and then finally fastening everything down in the 4 positions with the 4 block nuts included in the kit from the factory. This completes the tutorial on the building process of your Good Luck by Quadcopter. I hope you found the video useful and helpful. If you liked it, please click the like button just below the video on the left side of your screen. This will help this come up easier in searches for folks that are looking for help on building the project. Thank you, and if you have any questions, here's my email address.